Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay Police have arrested two men in connection with a brazen heist at a local Royal Bank that occurred back in December. 57-year-old Angelo Morozo and 34-year-old Andrew Patola, both from Thunder Bay, have been charged with break and enter. And a third suspect living in southern Ontario has also been identified. Alex Flood has the details.
Nearly 2 months after the carefully planned break and enter at the RBC at Grandview Mall took place, two city residents have been arrested. When police arrived at the initial scene back on December 6th, they learned the bank had been broken into and that a large amount of cash had been stolen. Visible clues suggested a power tool was used to cut the lock of an exterior door to the old Hallmark location adjacent to the bank. The thieves then used equipment to break through an interior wall between the vacant space and the bank, leaving a hole in the concrete blocks that was just large enough for a person to crawl through. Detective Inspector John Fennell credits the community's assistance in helping locate the culprits.
Based on some video in the area, some tips from residents and community members in the area, they were able to follow it through and were able to identify 3 people that were responsible for it. 2 such have been arrested, and were arrested yesterday and placed into custody. And there's 1/3 that we're still seeking that we know is in southern Ontario.
Fennell confirmed a sum of over $50,000 was stolen after one of the bank machines was completely destroyed, and a portion of the total is yet to be recovered. Fennell says they have reached out to other police agencies in southern Ontario to assist in locating and arresting the third suspect.
We'll continue to try to identify what where his location may be. And of course, they may be able to assist that, and that's where we'll notify them, as we already have notified some, that we are seeking that individual, as there is history, past history of this type of behavior, so therefore they may be familiar with them as well.
57-year-old Angelo Morozo was charged with break and enter and then released until his next court date. 34-year-old Andrew Patola was also charged with failure to comply with the release order, and he will remain in custody until his next court appearance. The investigation remains ongoing. Alex Flood, TVT News.
Thunder Bay Police have also officially launched a new program aimed at disrupting the local drug trade. Project Reveal will allow city residents to help police pinpoint where drug trafficking activity is happening. The project involves police officers visiting neighborhoods with known or suspected drug problems. They talk with people and offer them brochures to better understand how they can provide crucial tips to investigators. Receiving these key details is important for police, as significant evidence is required to obtain search warrants. Police Chief Sylvie Hoth took part in the launch of Project Reveal. She explains why that collaboration between police and citizens is so important.
They are the ears and the eyes. They see what's going on, and this gives us the opportunity to connect in our neighborhood to ensure that we have a safe community and that we are able, as a police service, to continue our work in that partnership with our community members.
Trust is always and ever ending, right, between the police and the community. We do our very best to make sure that we instill that trust with the people. And I can tell you that the neighborhoods that we've been going to and knocking on the doors, they have been very positive with us about our experiences and what we're doing.
Project Reveal soft launched in December and has already helped police get search warrants for drug arrests. In 2021 alone, Thunder Bay Police seized nearly $3.8 million worth of drugs, including 2.2 kilograms of fentanyl. Well, the Police Services Board has appointed an acting deputy chief. Superintendent Dan Taddeo will take on that role following the suspension of Ryan Hughes last week due to an internal investigation. Taddeo's appointment took effect immediately after a vote by the board earlier today. He's been with the force since 1988 and has served in a variety of senior positions. Board Chair Kristen Oliver released a statement thanking Taddeo for taking on the new role and helping Chief Sylvie Hoth provide the community with appropriate and effective policing. Hughes was appointed deputy chief in the summer of 2019. No details have been released about why he was suspended. After record highs in COVID-19 admissions over the last couple of weeks, the regional hospital seems to be trending in the right direction. The hospital has fewer infected patients, although more are now in intensive care, mainly those who are unvaccinated. Here's Corey Nordstrom with the latest details.
The number of patients admitted to the Thunder Bay Regional Hospital with COVID-19 has finally seen a significant decline after seeing record numbers as high as 52 on Tuesday. Going into the weekend, hospital officials announced they have just 43 COVID-positive patients. 9 of those are in the ICU. Hospital capacity is now at 101.5%, with ICU capacity at 86.4%.
It's been the most significant and sustained highs that we've seen over the past 10 to 14 days. So that's been a little bit new to us. That said, we are seeing those numbers come down a little bit. It's the last couple of days that we've only seen single-digit admissions for COVID-19.
But Crocker-Ellicott says one important piece of information is not seen in their daily reportings, and that's the effect of COVID-19 on people no longer deemed an active case.
That doesn't necessarily account for individuals that continue to remain in hospital once their COVID infectious disease period clears. So although there are 9 COVID positive in ICU, very often we have a few additional patients in ICU or in other parts of the organization that still require care for COVID-related illness. And as of yesterday, for example, that number was 29.
The hospital's CEO is hopeful the downward trend in cases can be seen across the province and they can soon get back to doing non-urgent surgeries.
The thought is that the province may shift that directive to in a phase 2 approach. So hoping to see mid-February, late February, maybe see some resumption of some of that surgical and procedural care that's been put on hold.
Crocker-Ellicott is also urging the public to get their COVID shot, as 62% of intensive care patients are unvaccinated. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Well, here are the latest COVID-19 case numbers from across the Northwest. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 170 new infections since its last update on Wednesday. There are now 317 active cases, up from 287. And there are currently 14 active outbreaks across the district. Over in the Northwestern Health Unit, there are 288 active cases, 39 more than there were 2 days ago. The 7-day test positivity rate is now just below 19%. There are 3 active institutional outbreaks across the NWHU. The Conservative MP for Kenora says it's time for the truckers' protest in the nation's capital to end. Eric Melillo has been in Ottawa all week carrying out his parliamentary duties.
It's certainly not a decision for me to make, but I think it's definitely come the time that the protesters move on at this point.
The protest convoy passed through Melillo's riding on January 25th and 26th. At the time, he expressed support for their cause, saying he opposed vaccine mandates for transport drivers. The truckers converged in Ottawa last weekend, and Melillo says he's chatted with them on his way to Parliament each day. Besides impeding traffic in the capital, some people have been seen disrespecting statues and monuments and carrying Nazi flags. Melillo criticized those actions on social media, and he now says the truckers and others need to pack up and leave.
It's been almost a week, I think, at this point, and the protest, although it is peaceful from my experience, walking through this every day this week, it is peaceful, but it's clearly blocking critical infrastructure, and to me, that is an area where we don't want to see any protest block critical infrastructure, whether it's roads, in town, highways, bridges, railways, and obviously law enforcement has the tools and the duty to intervene if they feel necessary. So,
yeah, we are now a week into that convoy protest in Ottawa, and now the City of Toronto is preparing for a similar convergence this weekend. Police have begun closing off streets to prevent the protesters from seizing that city. Colin DeMello has the details.
A massive police presence in downtown Toronto to prevent protesters from seizing up city streets.
Vehicles will not be congregating around Queen's Park.
To block off the incoming convoy, police shut down a large portion of University Avenue, the heart of Ontario's healthcare system.
The service will be prioritizing emergency access routes to hospitals to ensure patients, their families, and healthcare workers are able to access the hospital safely.
Patrols have been placed around Queen's Park, and just north of the legislature, a staging area has been set up for vehicles. Demonstrators here say they are expecting backup.
We're going to have lots of big machinery here very shortly. Tractors are making their way down in here now, and there's going to be some big equipment here, and there's going to be need some room for that to get around here.
The city is actively trying to avoid the situation currently unfolding in Ottawa, where a week-long demonstration has turned into an occupation. And the mayor says that's not about to happen here.
If anyone is planning to come here for a protest that is not peaceful and that is not respectful, I would urge you on behalf of all Toronto residents and businesses to please stay home.
Premier Doug Ford says the province is taking a zero-tolerance approach.
For hatred of any kind, harassment of any kind, or violence of any kind, it won't be tolerated.
The big question now, how long will the protest actually last? Police say without vehicles, demonstrators would be forced to return home. But as they attempt to make a point, some have brought supplies.
We got food and gas with us, so we're going to stick around for a while. Doug Ford, he needs a little bit of a push here, and I got faith he's going to do the right thing, so we'll see.
The Premier pleading with protesters to remain calm, saying the end is on the horizon.
The public health measures are being lifted as we speak. You know, we're so close, so close to getting back to normal.
Protesters say they want an immediate end to COVID-19 restrictions.
That was CTV's Colin DeMello. Lakehead University President Moira McPherson says she won't stay for a second term as head of the school and instead will step aside in the summer of 2023. In a statement to staff and students, McPherson said, in part, throughout my 35-year tenure at Lakehead, it has been an absolute privilege to serve you all in various academic and administrative roles, with my most recent 12 years in senior leadership positions. Following my time as president and vice chancellor, I look forward to how I will continue to serve as a member of our amazing university community. McPherson says she's proud of progress to advance Indigenous priorities and that she's eager to ensure continued advancement of school partnerships and to build on Lakehead's long history supporting the healthcare education in the North. Confederation College will maintain the status quo, keeping most classes online for the rest of the current semester. College officials have decided to stick with the hybrid system with mainly virtual learning. They say changing it this late in the semester would have disrupted the already busy schedules of students and staff. The college isn't completely empty, however, as there are still a number of hands-on classes happening in person. Vice President of Academics Richard Gemmell says while the decision to stick with remote learning was difficult, he has high hopes for next semester, which starts in early May.
The spring, we are hopefully fully intending on having more classes, all classes, delivered this spring and summer face-to-face. Again, barring any changes or updates on the pandemic front.
City Council will look to take another step on Monday night toward the demolition of the Victoriaville Mall. Council is being asked to award the $1.1 million consulting services contract to KGS Group, a North American firm with a Thunder Bay office. According to the staff report, KGS has overseen similar projects before, and its proposal scored well during the city's evaluation. The total project cost is estimated around $9 million to tear down the roof and other infrastructure at Victoriaville and then rebuild the street along Victoria Avenue. The work could begin in 2023 and wrap up in 2025. The city has applied for grant funding to support the Victoriaville project, but the status of those applications are still up in the air. Thunder Bay Police are monitoring the traffic congestion around the city's new Popeyes restaurant. The outlet opened on Monday and continues to be extremely popular throughout its first week. People have been coming out in droves to try the chicken and other fast food items, and the novelty hasn't worn off yet. Popeyes has more than 3,000 locations, but this is the first one in Thunder Bay. The street leading up to the drive-thru has been consistently packed with vehicles, with lineups extending around the corner to the Simpson Street Bridge. Acting Traffic Sergeant Sal Carchidi says despite the traffic, local drivers have been able to manage and adapt to the situation.
We haven't received any complaints specifically, but we have been made aware of long lines all the way across the floodway down Simpson Street. So thankfully that section of roadway is 4 lanes and drivers have been able to adapt. I would just remind the other drivers to reduce their speeds and watch for the increased traffic and pedestrians in the area.
Well, if you missed any of today's local stories or you'd like to watch them again, you can find them on tbnewswatch.com under TBT News Stories. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook users can find TBT News at TBT News TBay, and on Twitter, we can be found at TBT News_TBay. Well, Fiona, you told us yesterday that we